Welcome back. Not gonna worry so much about the backdrop right now because I'm just gonna be a little tiny picture in the corner. But I am going to remind you once again to um, to think critically here. And once again, I am back to give you the dirt on the Social Security Administration and what is going on in there. Because it's still not pretty, even with Leland Dudek gone. Um, Last time we were here, um, well, let's get to that in a moment. I do want to clarify I am employed by the Social Security Administration and have been for the past 19 years. And because I'm bringing that up because of the Hatch Act, I have to be very careful not to give any specific partisan statements. So, nothing about political parties, nothing about somebody's who is a candidate or let alone can be a candidate. But my understanding is that they're not really enforcing it as hard right now, but I think that may be selective. I'm not going to risk it. And I want to make very clear the statements herein are my views and not the views of the Social Security Administration. You see it right in here? Because they were confused about whether my dismay of their actions last time were their own views. No, they weren't their own views, they were my views, but they had to ask me. And why they have to ask me? I had a Weingarten meeting. If you're not familiar with that, Weingarten meetings come from the United States Federal Labor Board versus Weingarten, or it should be Weingarten, I believe. I'm probably still mispronouncing it, but I think it's closer than it's normally pronounced. Um, Anyways, I had a meeting. It came straight down from Baltimore. My supervisor had to go through it, whether they wanted to or not, to ask these questions. And that's when you have a meeting that they're looking for answers and it may lead to disciplinary action. There was nothing to discipline, obviously, and so it was more or less harassment, but that's what I got. And that would be thanks to after I released my first video that had anything mentioning Social Security, I had a new follower, and it used a actual name. I'm not gonna say what that name was in full, but I searched inside because I was curious. I only got one person. Might this person be from Social Security? Yep, they were a public relations person for the agency at that point. Name matched perfectly. Since everything's been going on, she's been demoted to the same position I have because they demoted a whole lot of people in management and told them they have to go do the average everyday work that people like me do. But here's a shout out to you, Tracy. Not giving the last name, even though that was there. Um, but I went through it and it's kind of funny. They asked me a bunch of questions that were kind of ridiculous, like the one we discussed before. And when I wanted to review my answers, they refused to give me the questions that were asked. Just here's answers, and nowhere other than a vague memory of when I went through like 50 questions, what they may be referring to. They would only give me the answers that they recorded. My supervisor said she was told no, she cannot give me the questions, even though she initially intended to. But she was told no, she can't. So let's go on to our new commissioner, Frank Bisignano. And could be mispronouncing that too. My apologies. He came in a video where he came off as a humble guy. He doesn't have that big attitude that you would expect right about now with the Trump administration. But he did keep talking about everyone winning. And that really blew my mind because he talked about it so much that I would, I'm pretty sure that either Trump got the whole "you'll be tired of winning" stuff from him, or he just got everything that he was saying from Trump because he was talking about winning so damn much. What does he mean by winning? He's saying that the agency is going to win because we're going to cut costs. The employees are going to win because he's not going to lay us off. And eventually we're going to have a lot less workload to deal with. And the public's going to win because they're going to get better options. And he kept talking about this winning, winning, winning. And what does that come from? He claims it's going to be from AI. And AI can be very problematic, as we'll go into. But that is the agency's solution to everything is it's going to be AI. As Mr. Bisignano said, um, all the routine things would be handled by AI. And when something's very complicated comes down, that's when we'll come into play and actually deal with those issues that need a human touch. So that means you want to file a claim, you're going to be speaking to an artificial intelligence that's going to take down your answers. You have a problem, you're going to have to explain it to the artificial intelligence. And they're going to start doing basic actions on its own. They already started some of it. And you're going to be relying upon what it comes up with. Unless it gets really bad, then you're going to finally speak to someone like me who's going to have to try to fix whatever went wrong. Um, so let's talk about artificial intelligence here. First thing that they introduced was an AI bot. They named it ASC, Agency Something Chatbot. I don't remember what the S stands for. Something actually works there because it fits, but that's not what it's actually called. Something is just a filler word. Um, and it seems to be just basically Chat GPT. People can use it to help write notices. We already have templates. You have to be pretty bad with the English language to really need that. So I don't know why they're putting it in. It's also a bit confusing, but because the name they chose for it. ASC within the agency has meant Area Systems Coordinator, which you get some duplication of acronyms, but the people who actually you contact when no one in the office can figure out how you need to fix a computer problem issue. Um, that might not be the best acronym to duplicate, especially with something tech related, but they did it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. There's a policy based one that's expected in the future because we can't use that to look up policy. I tried just for fun, see what it would tell me, and it did. I did get it to tell me very wrong things about policy. And that was just testing, but they said, dude, don't use it for policy. They're expecting to make one in the future that will be able to go through policy. And that's probably a bad idea still because policy is not written very clearly. In fact, there are parts that contradict one another about policy. A great example is the employment and self employment forms for going over work. One part of policy says you only are getting it if there is work after the alleged onset date. Then there's another part of policy that's buried in there that says that they need that for the self-employment to decide whether you're going to go through and determine whether you whether or not they can still do that job. And I learned that from going back and forth with disability determination services about whether the form 820 was needed for the first several claims. Finally, someone was able to show me the policy which actually said that they needed it, and it directly contradicted other policy. But that's what we ended up going with. um, and eventually, based on Bisognano's statements, more and more actions and interactions will be automated. Now, have you been to Taco Bell? I've been there a few times since they've had AI taking your orders. It cannot get my order right for the life of it. I was trying to tell it, okay, I need one uh, this first order needs Diet Coke. The second order needs regular Coke. It was putting it down both as Diet Coke. As I'm trying to explain to it what it got wrong, it could not figure out what I was talking about, and a cashier had to get involved. So I guess they're listening in anyways. But now, if Taco Bell can't get my order right, and every single time I've used it, it's got something wrong about my order that it could not figure out. How do we expect this to take claims? How do we expect this to take statements that are, we can actually uphold and say, you told us this. You said that you stopped working. You could trust that AI that that's what was actually said, that they stopped working. Um, and people, you have to guide them to give you the right answers. I have a lot of times I'm asking them questions. They cannot give me a straight answer to it because they don't understand the concept we're going for. You ask them, because this is still a question, even though it's outdated. Have you, did you work for the United States government in January of 1983 as a civilian? People are sitting there, I'm not sure. Oh, I did. I worked for the city of Detroit doing bus driving or something like that. It's like, no, the city government is not the federal government. And that's just one example of questions that people often get wrong. Another one is when it comes to, did you file for workers' compensation? A lot of people think unemployment is workers' compensation. Is the AI going to be able to help them through that, to know when that doesn't quite sound right? And what did you file it for? Oh, I was out of work. You're able to go clarify. Do you mean unemployment? Yeah, that's not workers' compensation. It's a different thing. So I am not very hopeful that AI is going to be able to do it. It is not at the level. You may have a day when that happens. I don't see that anywhere in the near future. Nowhere in the next 20, 30 years is AI going to be able to do that right. Um, AI also cannot be expected to be capable of refusing illegal orders. So let us say that um, everybody who's done any work gets kicked off of their benefits altogether. That's not the law, that's illegal. A person like me is capable of saying, no, I'm not going to carry that out. AI will just do it because AI is going to be given directives. You're going to listen to this order. I think we remember looking at Grok recently. It came out. Elon Musk edited so much. It had some knowledge of what talking points belong where, and decided, well, if I'm going to be saying this, I am Mecha Hitler. And that's what Grok was calling itself. They had to go fix it. So it didn't claim that. Um, it didn't say, oh, I'm not going to say this. It just, was going to be honest, call itself Mecha Hitler in doing it. And so you really have to question, is it safe to have AI doing that instead of a human being? Um, you're putting way too much power in one person's hands. It's bad enough how many people were willing to just do whatever because they were told to. AI is not going to put up any fight whatsoever. That's a very dangerous thing to be putting it in charge of, especially if it hasn't been thoroughly discussed what it can and cannot be programmed to do beforehand. There's get we really have to have a serious discussion about how you're going to not only make it safe, but make sure that it stays safe, that somebody can't just override it. And getting what you need from AI takes skill, a skill that the most vulnerable amongst us do not have. You have to be very specific. If it's not giving you the result that you want, you need to be able to figure out how to say it in the right way that it gets what you want and prioritizes the right things. I've used it trying to create some images. Made a whole bunch recently for a wrestling booking game. Some, fake wrestlers. Um, you you really have to narrow things down and say this is what we want you to stress in that. It's not something that you're going to have it easily. And when you have people who have a hard time explaining what they're here for, or not what they're here for, but what they came to Social Security for, and you have them speaking to an AI, you are not going to get to the right answers. Certainly not with AI at the level it's at now, because it does take skill, and there's a lot of people out there who are not going to be able to deal with that. I've literally had people who I asked, "Okay, so why are we here today?" And their answer was, "I don't know." They had no idea why they came in and pulled the ticket, and so I have to go search for their record. Is there anything that gives some indication as to why they may have come in? Did they get any notices recently? Do they have a medical review, a review for SSI? A whole bunch of things. And I came up with nothing, but I had to go actually look in that case and try to come up with something and see, is there something that there would be a reason they came in for. AI is not going to at any level where it can do that, and that's going to be a problem. We also got this fun gun and weapon statement, and you can pause it if you want to read it through. But we've never, this has been the law ever since I've been in the agency. But for some reason, they all of a sudden decided we have to sign a statement that says that we are strictly prohibited from possessing any firearms or explosives or dangerous weapons, etc., etc. And there's a question as to why in the hell they're having us sign this now. Um, I feel there's probably something behind it, but I don't know what that is yet. Are they worried that they're going to be going so far that we're going to be driven to do that? Um, I really don't know. But this is something that they just all of a sudden decided they're going to have us all sign once a year, that we understand that we can't bring guns in. And no one, to my knowledge, has ever brought a gun in other than the security guards. And a couple times they let cops who are on duty come in when they shouldn't have, with their weapons. Next thing, we are being notified very recently that here we go, Wednesday, the 23rd of July, that we are um, going to be going through some continuous vetting thing, which is, you know, why they feel they need to keep doing this stuff, um, when we don't really have issues, is kind of disturbing. It suggests they're going to be looking and individually picking people out, targeting them, removing them, because I think it's going to be for political beliefs. But that seems to be what they're looking to do. in some form. And this is something that Trump brought up at the end of his first term, and seems to be doing now, though it's not quite clear because when I looked at the frequently asked questions, it put us on a 5-year scale to go through these reviews, um, which but doesn't really explain what this continuous vetting is. We haven't really got anything good that explains that at all. But there's something going on there. Much bigger issue is Direct Express. Now, back at the end of the Bush era, beginning of the Obama era, somewhere around there, they changed things, where everything's supposed to be electronic. You have to get special exception and all that, and they started really pushing Direct Express. Direct Express had been around, probably for the better part of a decade before, maybe a decade. But this is a program through the Treasury Department where a contractor gets to run this little prepaid card that they automatically will sign people up for if they don't have a bank account or credit union account. It's meant for people who can't open one initially. It has degraded over the years. I remember when I first started, Chase Bank was running it, and then it went to Comerica early on when I came in. It's been with Comerica. Used to be that we could help people with a whole lot with it. We used to be able to get quickly through their ACH line and get things resolved if people have problems. Not anymore. They took longer and longer as they cut more and more staff, and so we'd be waiting for like 3 hours on the ACH line trying to get through. And of course, we complained, why is it taking this long? We're paying employees, we could be paying somebody $40 an hour to sit there and wait on hold because they don't want to hire enough people at $15 an hour or $20 an hour to actually answer the lines to deal with their problems. So they told us, well, you're complaining too much. We're going to cancel our memorandum of understanding, which they kept before this, asking people to come to us to get one. No, memorandum of understanding was between Social Security and Direct Express that allowed us to go make that contact. But like I said, these are not the best educated people that were working there, anyways. But so we stopped being able to do that. So we moved on, and we had this little program that was created there where we could just set things up for a callback after we've identified somebody properly. And now that's going away. And we also have where we had an issue, where, let's say, somebody has a card, they're payee for somebody, or maybe they're actually just beneficiary gain for themselves, and they pass away. You had a special process where we were able to go in and get those funds back. It took a while, it might take a month or two, but you could get those funds back. That's gone now. They got rid of that. And so we're in a precarious situation where you really may not want to have Direct Express. I strongly advise against it because there's nowhere you can go get assistance in person, and they notoriously have people have issues trying to meet their identity standards where they can come in front of me, I can see their ID, they are that person, but they can't prove it to Direct Express because they can't figure out how to send it on their phone and all that to them. It gets very complicated, and when you have certain people who are not very tech literate, who may have limited literacy altogether, they are not able to handle that. So I would be very cautious if you're thinking of getting Direct Express. Do definitely try to get a bank account or credit union account because they are planning September 30th they're not going to send any paper checks whatsoever, even one-time payments. You have to have an account or sign up for Direct Express, or they're just not going to pay it till you do. That's the current plan, at least. This is now you can pretty much ignore the exact acronyms here. There's two different types of workers that we have that do very similar jobs, but they're not the same job. You have service reps, or they used to be called service representatives. That's our SRs, and excuse me, teleservice representatives or TSRs. And they work two separate jobs at some point along the line. The agency, about 10, 15 years ago, decided we're going to reorganize everything and just called them all CSRs. And they changed me from a CR, which is a claims representative, to a CS, which is a claims specialist. Most of us still use the old acronyms because they're better, but it's very important that they refused to bargain on it at the time on the basis that they weren't making any actual changes in what people were doing. Um, and they didn't actually change anything at the time with what people were doing. So they didn't have to bargain it. It was still the status quo as it was before under the old job descriptions or position descriptions. But they decided on July 3rd they were going to throw 500 customer service 500 service representatives from the field office, and they were going to just start answering calls on teleservice. This was to reduce the 800 number wait time substantially. They moved 500 on I think it was a Friday, no, it was a Thursday. Ignore the where it says Friday, and 500 more on a Monday. That's because that Friday was July 4th. We had it off. But the very next day, they just put 500 more. And the issue here is, well, we'll go into those issues in a second. But it is a very significant change there. This came out of nowhere. They didn't bargain it. And for example, my office, we lost both of our service representatives. We had two of them. First one, the one that was here the least long, went on went on the Thursday. They had to start doing the teleservice. The other one went on the following Monday, had to do teleservice, and they're not trained in the differences between the two jobs. They are doing very similar functions, but they do it with very different understandings, very different tools. They're being held to higher standards than the teleservice representatives are currently. They're not able to use the tools that are bread and butter to the teleservice representatives. You just simply cannot access those in the field office, period. And this is a tool that was very useful. It would lead you, tell you everything. Okay, this is what I'm looking at. Here's all the policy references. Here's the programs that you may need to go to. Quick links to all that. As we described, they were not bargained. There was completely insufficient notice. They literally told us the afternoon before that the first batch was coming, and they told us on that Monday morning that the next batch was coming through. And what this means, and this is important here, higher paid employees like myself were reassigned to do the lower grade work that these service representatives were doing. Handling the social security card appointments, handling benefit verification letters, the very basic things that we gave, the easier things we gave to them. The more skilled people who had more training were doing more complicated things more often than not. We might be helping them out here and there. But for each one of them sent, that means another claims representative was taking their spot at the front line handling that. And what this actually reduces is adjudication of these claims. That's your processing of the claims, getting people to pay. That is processing your overpayments and waivers, your disability reviews, et cetera, et cetera. All those things that you're doing behind the scenes, that's going to be taking longer to get done. The affected employees, you're hearing all over, they're looking to leave. They were just thrown in. They weren't trained. They don't know what's going on exactly, and it's a completely different thing. To be honest, there's a big difference between, okay, I gotta call another number. I could take a breath, call the number, they come up. There's that little bit of pause to, you're in the middle of something, it gets heated, and you're tense up, you're trying to be nice. Beep, they hung up, you got another call right there, and you gotta get right into it and be friendly. Um, as I said, both of them are classified as customer service representatives, but the old divisions apply because they refused to bargain when it was reclassified. Um, I have heard from several people now that they're now sending the 800 numbers to the field offices as well. So the field office phone lines are answering 1-800 number calls. So that's more people being taken off to bring this number. And this number is because when Frank Bisignano was going through his whole confirmation, senators asked him, "Can you bring these call times down?" And he said yes. So this is his key, and he's willing to do anything to bring those down, even if it causes disaster elsewhere. Now, what we have to understand here is feedback loops. And as I always used to tell an old manager, she's retired now, um, she would say, there's people waiting in the lobby. They've been there for 20 minutes. We need you to call tickets. I would say, well, here, you see these folders? These are people sitting on my desk. They need me to get done. And if I don't get this stuff done in a reasonable time frame, they'll be coming in and they'll be the ones sitting out there. And when we speak to them, we'll say, well, we're working on, we haven't got a chance to get to it. It's just preventing us from getting that work done. When you focus on frontline service, things don't get done behind the scenes, things that you need to get done. And when things don't get done, more people try to contact you. They're giving you phone calls, they're coming into the lobby. And both direct contact and behind the scenes workloads end up increasing. You got more that's sitting there, backlog needs to get done, but you also have more people coming into the office. You're trying to get out, oh, let's get that done quick and easy as fast as we can. And of course, sometimes that just will not go down. I remember speaking to a woman, and she frustrated me to no end. I spoke to her a few times, and she's always calling about the same thing. She wants to make sure a direct deposit was changed or had not been moved, and she can't do it by phone anymore. But she told me at one point, because I spoke to her, it's like, I talked to you earlier today. Did you call and change it? Because otherwise, nothing's changed. And she told me, oh, I call mini offices several times a day to do this. That's what she does. She's not right in the head, but that's what she does or used to do before we started saying you can't do that by phone at all. And that's the type of stuff that you're not getting rid of. They're still going to be coming no matter how much you work with the in office things. There are long standing thing where you'd also have the second that you really get those times down and there's not many people there. That's when you get a bunch of people coming in to go handle things that are ridiculous. People coming in and they want a explanation of an overpayment they had before I was born. crazy things like that. That's what they do when there's not much of a wait time. They'll normally stay away if it's like, no, I'm not going to go wait there for an hour to go speak to somebody. But oh, there's nobody in the parking lot at all. Let me just go jump in. And you're going to get some of that more when you focus on that frontline work. Now, another thing I heard, and this is because I have been here there 19 years, I have worked as colleagues with many, many people who were later promoted into management. So I've heard from managers across the area, across the region, across the country about stuff. And one of the fun things I heard is that these office managers are so frustrated with the things that are happening. It's just so off the wall, and they can't understand it that they're literally cussing out the managers on top of them in conference calls. You really have a change in mindset, even of the office level managers, where they're much more understanding of our plights because they've been so distanced from the people above them by them just being batshit crazy with what they're asking for. And I don't know the details of all the stuff that's happening, but there's much more that's going to be coming through, and it's really upsetting managers. And so that's something you should be aware of as the American public. Another thing that I heard that they are planning on doing, I haven't got any emails about it as of yet. They plan to have, we normally have targets. I think it's like 80 or 90% of our retirements and survivors claims are supposed to be processed within this by the service delivery objective, which could be as soon as 2 weeks later. They want to move it up to 100%, which, if you know nothing about it, which you probably know nothing about what I'm talking about, that sounds perfectly, yeah, let's get it all done by that time. But that's not in the public's best interest. And here's why. When claims are taking longer than they normally do, the main reason that you're going to see that is either the claimant needs to get proofs, such as they have to go out of state to get marriage certificates or divorce decrees, and they're not driving to California from Michigan. So we're going to have them mailed to them. This is something that takes a while. They often will have to send them paper forms to go get the stuff. And so we give them 30 days, but that 30 days puts them over the service delivery objective. And if we're going to bring that down to 100%, you're going to probably see offices starting to not give people the 30 days they're supposed to be giving them. They're going to say, okay, well, it's been 10 days. We don't have it. Service delivery objective is tomorrow. Just deny it. Deny it. They can appeal it. And that's going to be the end of it. So we're going to be making a whole bunch of improper denials, adding work to both ourselves and the claimants in order to give the illusion that we're getting things done faster. This is not to the advantage of the claimant. The other big thing is the claimant has filed early. Because, for example, you're filing for your retirement claim. You can claim up to 3 months beforehand, 4 months before you get the actual check, or no, up to that time, up to the last date of the month that you're claiming the benefits for. So if you come 3 months early and say, I want to file for my retirement, is well, by the time you see it, this could be August. I want to start for November. They can do that. But it's not going to get done in 30 days by any means. So the system cannot process it. It's incapable of doing so. And so you're probably going to see some of those. You file too early, we're going to deny you, or we're going to delete the claim, or they're going to find something, because these managers could be sitting there desperate to try to meet this 100% metric that doesn't take into account unique situations that are not in the public's best interest for us to get processed right away, because it's not going to be processed properly if we do it right away. We're also seeing the end of policy. And this is kind of big. And when I say end of policy, I mean the end of policy. Um, we used to have direct contact with policy experts. They'd be in the regional offices. That ended about 10 to 15 years ago. And I remember one claim where we were dealing, I think it had to do with disclosure. Can I disclose this information to an attorney? And so went to them and I cited what I saw in our policy and said, I see this, I see this. Am I understanding this policy correct? It might not have been exactly the contact thing, but it was something that went in that way. I gave them a couple of references. Am I understanding this right? And I had this great response back from somebody in Chicago, very friendly, very knowledgeable, said, the way you're reading that is absolutely correct. However, they had an emergency message that came out on such and such a date, and it got removed, even though they haven't updated the policy yet. And it's still in effect, and we've been asking them to put it back up, but they haven't. And it says the opposite thing. So I was reading everything right, but I didn't have it. Great stuff. They got rid of it because they were downsizing back then. So I moved to a program called D-Help, which gave much worse assistance. And I mean, I would do the same thing. I'd say, this policy says this, this, and this. This one says this, this, and this. So how do we interpret it? And they would just take one of the things you said and just say, it says this, this, and this. Yeah, but I asked you how I interpret that. Does it mean this or does it mean that? They weren't able to do it. My understanding is it got better, but they limited it to just management and the technical experts in the office to be able to contact them. But now even that is gone. They said there's no more D-Help. That's gone. If you have any policy questions, ask your manager. That means the local manager in your office is now the highest authority on what policy is. And they do not agree. Our policies are not very straightforward. I remember at one point, our office was accepting um, for children over 5 years old shot records as proof of their ID. And what they would do is, well, we can't put it in as a shot record, but we could put it in as a medical record. I went to the manager, I was like, we should not be doing this. And no, she was sure, no, we're gonna, you can do it. It's still a medical record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so she wanted to show me, a little bit what's what. She knew more than me. So she set it up, and like a week later came back, and I was right. We stopped doing that. But now that that's gone, if we have a similar situation, whatever that manager interprets it as, that's what the policy is. And we have offices that do things wildly different as is, that we think that the other office is doing things not the way it's supposed to be done. But of course, the management culture for years and years is you don't mess with the other manager's domain. It's like a fiefdom. If that's the way they run their office, that's the way they run their office. Because those managers in your office don't want their managers correcting them, so nobody ever did anything. Now that's final. There's no one to say, "Hey, what is the actual policy?" Whatever your manager says, that's what it is. And the people who are managers, this goes back decades. They're not chosen for being policy experts by any means. They're not chosen for who is going to be able to get um, the most, the best answers from their employees. It's who's going to get the best results. People are followers, and okay, well, we need to get these metrics up. who's going to push their staff to go get those metrics up. And that's all that was there. So these are the people who are not the critical thinkers generally, um, who are going to be the final decision makers on what policy says. Well, of course, you could peel it up further, but you get my point here. There's another issue in that. This is fun because I don't think anyone in Baltimore knows it, but if you're still watching, you'll know now. We are having problems getting attorneys on record. It's not that we can't do it at all. For unknown reasons, the program we used to add and remove attorneys stopped working properly, and people in the agency will know what that is. If it's been more than 15 minutes since you used it, and it's with a lot of things, it'll log you off of stuff. Here, whatever it does, even if you logged off manually, it will not work until you've gone in and you've used a different program to completely reset all your browsers. So all your favorites that you have to use to jump things are in there. Everything you have open, most of what we have open runs on Internet Explorer in some way or another. That all has to be closed. If you're not careful, you can end up locking yourself out of stuff with that. But to go add an attorney, we have that. So if you get partway through adding an attorney in and you get stopped, you have to take a phone call, good chance you got to start all over, refresh everything, run that program to get back in. So it's not worth doing an attorney unless you're going to sit there and you're going to add, 5, 6 of them at a time, because otherwise you're just wasting time. And because they kicked so many people out of management, they fired so many of them, reduction in force type stuff. We don't have a way of getting it up to people who used to be able to get things up higher. The people they'd send it through, they no longer work there. They don't know how to get it up to let anyone know. So there's a good chance no one in Baltimore knows that we're having problems with our attorneys. And I have to thank the attorneys that do Social Security claims for never once in all this period of austerity actually getting together to lobby for more workers to get their stuff done. You would think that would be something they'd be focused on since they call 10 times a day to find out why they're not on. But let's talk now about celebrations and accomplishments. And this comes from 2 July emails that you can see here. And this one we can show you briefly, but it's just a prelude to this one. That came out July 7th, 4 days later, after they went through and they they took those 500 service representatives and had them do completely different work that they weren't trained for, holding the higher standards and all that. And Mr. Bizignano was, he's a very friendly person as he talks. At least when he's doing something that we can see. For all I know, he's total monster in person, one-on-one. I don't know. He might be just like this in person. But you get he tries to give you the idea that these are things that they have accomplished because of what he's done. But he's humbly giving us credit for it. So let's focus on what is actually being talked about. What are these claims? Because this is important, because this is what they're going to say. We made Social Security better. We didn't need, we even laying off all these workers. They were just being inefficient before. But it's very misleading. Completed over 3.1 million payments to all who were entitled to under the Social Security Fairness Act, 5 months ahead of schedule. These are the people who, that question I gave you earlier, did you work for the U.S. government January 1983? In the last month, just about, well, it was December of 2024, end of Biden's term, they passed this, which means that they were able to not have their benefits reduced for what they were getting. So they have to update everything. and they focused on this to a point that they got it done 5 months early. What was the cost of that, though? That's something that's very visible. Um, and I mean, mention something else later, but a lot of it is you had people who filed claims and we had to send it up to the payment center to get processed. Didn't get processed. Those sat there for those months while they focused on getting that one workload done. So if you filed for retirement, you just got approved for disability, but the system wouldn't allow us to process it through the system. We have to use a different system that's called automated, but it's very manual by comparison. So this automated thing is a automated form of a paper form that you used to have to use. Way back in the day, more or less when I was a very little kid or before I was born. Um, this automated version, and since then they made it where most claims go through easily. But if you're not one of those claims because you have an overpayment already on the record, or somebody is getting a windfall offset from SSI, um, something like that, you have to go through this older program. And the processing center or program service center is the official term, has to actually process this claim. Those sat there for those months. There's one that I was doing, and it's this simple. Where I needed hit an A, I hit an N by accident. So I'm going through it quickly. You have to do that to get through workloads because we're short staffed. I hit the wrong thing. Oh crap. What can I do? You can't get them on phones anymore. So I sent an email. A month later, I sent a follow up email. It took 6 weeks for me to get, and probably after they got that done, but 6 weeks for me to get it back so I could do that claim properly and send it out. That's how long it took. And that's because they're focusing on that. These are the things that just weren't getting done so they could get something that's very in your face. And look, we have an accomplishment, but don't look at the things that didn't get done because of that. There's no balance in what they're doing right now. They continue to upgrade SSA's telephone technology, blah, blah, blah. New system is better in some ways than the old system, but a lot worse than others. For example, last I've seen, or last I tried, I can't dial from extension to extension. I can't, we all have extensions there. I can't call any of them. I can't transfer anything to them because it doesn't work right. It's an Amazon based web service that, which also an issue because there's no clear icon to get to it. It's buried in with your Internet Explorers or Microsoft Edge, they call it now, stuff. And so trying to find it while it's ringing even is difficult because there's no, they don't have it set up so it even pops up separately and things just keep adding to that window as new tabs when you open them. Even when you pull it out, new things seem to just jump onto that one, which makes it hard to find. But we got issues with there, but it does replace some issues that we had with the old system that didn't work very well. So we keep picking crappy phone systems. They won't bargain with the union on it. They never do. And we get things that don't work right as a result. But they continue doing that. They reduced the average speed of answer on the 800 number to 13 minutes, which is 35% reduction to this time last year, blah, blah, blah. That's what they got from getting those 1,000 service reps out of there. They were able to reduce it to by 35%. Um, and that comes at that great cost. Like I said, that isn't upfront. It's going to take time for it to show, but it's going to show. See the whole list starting over here. It's because this is the bottom part of it. The optimized technology on the 800 number, so 90% are handled by automated self-service options or convenient callbacks. I don't know exactly what that's like because I haven't used it. But this is the beginning of AI stuff. Um, they're probably doing more phone prompt stuff right now, but it's going to move to the AI. That's the service model they're going to, and things are going to get messed up doing that. They implemented a new service model in field offices that has reduced wait times by about 10% for all customers year over year. And this is, well, first off, they're not customers. I hate when they always do that because these are corporate people, not public servant people. And this is not a Trump thing. This is what it's been since probably the 1980s. Um, they have people who are not public servants in charge, and they think that that people walk in the office are customers. No. Law of attorneys are customers because they ask for medical records we have when we charge them for it. It does require the signed release from the person that they involved. It's the Privacy Act of 1972 that doesn't apply to Doge for some reason. Um, but um, anyways, we need to mention that this new service model was under O'Malley. I know I definitely was talking about November 8th, sharing my concerns with management about what we might need to do when we have that, because I figured we're going to get a whole bunch more phone calls because we're having this. So we probably need a dedicated phone person. And this was November 8th, so it was later in November or it was in December that this came out. It is not something that they did recently. And when you're comparing uh, stuff, I know they do that in here somewhere, where they're trying to compare how many people were in there. This time last year is not it might have been in the first one. If I go back, um, delivering, driving down. Yeah, yeah, this is where they talk about the way we in our field offices dropped 23 minutes to 23 minutes so far this year, down from 30 minutes last year, a 23% reduction. That's this time last year. And it's not a fair comparison because this new model happened beforehand, but after this time last year, significantly after. So if we have more people coming in the office right now, for example, you're not going to be able to tell. You're not able to get through them as fast. You're not going to be able to tell because you don't have an apples to apples comparison. It's not the same rules in place. But they're going to claim it as an advantage, somewhere that they can let go bad because they they move those people who were doing that job and may bring those numbers down the other way. The other, they sent them to be doing teleservice work. And my guess is if you looked at the actual numbers, back in May or June, you probably had a much larger reduction of in-office visits. I know my office, you have less wait times at that point. Uh, Now, if we go look here, decrease initial disability claims backlog by 25%. I don't know about that, what exactly happened there, but this is something that was claimed. Uh, it may have been something that O'Malley did. It may be something that they focused on instead of doing other stuff. I don't know. Uh, Hearings pending. Once again, I don't know exactly what caused that. And these are also things where they may just be making reckless decisions. I don't know. I can't speak one way or another to that because I am ignorant on the details there. And you are in the process. There, I don't know why to say we are in the process. It's being updated. This is normally something that was done by the organization that Doge was beforehand, before they started just going in and cutting, kicking people out of their buildings and all that stuff. But they made websites, including the Social Security website. And for some reason, there's times of the day where it was just down for maintenance, you couldn't access it. That was normally like later hours of the night, but it's should be by now 24/7 availability. Which if they did, that's great. That is something that's actually good. But the important thing is that things are being hidden, the costs of getting some of the stuff done. Um, Now, I do want to bring up some miscellaneous things before we wrap things up. We're still dealing with Medicare contractors. I've had quite a few issues recently where people are being told the wrong thing, and this is issues with contractors generally. This isn't a Social Security thing, but this is something that the government has where we want to do everything by contractors. And I remember being told when I first started 19 years ago, when you call 1-800 Medicare, 90% chance you're not speaking to a Medicare employee. You're speaking to a contractor. And those contractors are not judged based on are you helping the public. It's how many calls did you do? So the thing that they would do is they try to get rid of people as soon as possible. You call them, you got to call Social Security. You call them, you got to call your Part D plan. Their job was to get you off the phone because that's what they got credit for because they took a call. And we're treating it as if all calls are equal when they're not. And so, because they know they're being judged by that metric, this could be important later. That's why I'm bringing it up here. Because we're judging them by that metric, that's what they're going to do. They're going to find some way to boost that metric no matter what it takes. And so you get people who are just misleading people. I literally, when I was a teleservice representative, because that's where I started, I said, I call them up and try with somebody. I'm calling from Social Security. This person has an issue here. They need this. Oh, you need to call Social Security. I am Social Security. We're not who you handle this with. They need help with da 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 da. Oh, you need to call the Medicare Part D provider. No, you don't. This is on the Medicare, and they end up handling it. They did it on the phone while I was there with the person because I wasn't going to move. I knew that they were trying to get me off the line. But that's the problem with when you have contractors doing stuff. Not quite the same issue we're going to have with Social Security because it's all going to be AI, but that's the issue when you have contractors in general. When it's about the volumes of calls taken, not the success rate. I have seen internet retirement claim pending at the payment center. This was just recently for 3 months, unprocessed recently. Everything was ready to go. I'm able to view it. I can't go in and process it for them. It's in the jurisdiction of the payment center, the initial claims taking unit of the payment center. They got sent tons and tons of retirement claims. They didn't used to be that long. It used to be they'd wait a while. It'd be like a month, 2 months maybe. You didn't see it hit three. This one was there for over 3 months. And that's going to be, it was sitting there, the new retirement claim, untouched because they were focused on the other work task that they were supposed to get done 5 months later. But they want to get that one done early. This can wait because no one's looking at this. No one's asking about the processing times for this stuff right now. Despite him, he also had a thing where he wanted us to all just rush to get things processed as soon as possible. That was, I don't know what the heck the idea behind that was, but apparently just suggesting it to us would somehow magically make it happen. And so let's talk about the folly of metrics because we live in a metrics based bureaucracy right now. Not your old fashioned bureaucracy. This is very much a metrics based bureaucracy. And you run up with weird things when you worry about metrics. And you could be going back to the Roman Empire. You have to use up this. If you don't need the money to replace all of this, you get a lower budget next time. That's something like as old as the Roman Empire, at least. And, I mean, that's just a bad idea. it causes people to just waste things. That's why often the military just shoots off bullets at the end of the fiscal year. Let's get rid of them because otherwise we'll get our budget cut next year. That sort of thing. But metrics are great for studies. If you're just looking at something and you want to figure out what do we need to do. If there's any kids watching, don't smoke. It's just an extra need. It's not a benefit. But metrics are great for studies. You go start. You say, hey, how do we judge how well this place is doing? And you can do it. How many calls are these people taking? That could be a good metric for a study. You can look, how long is it taking for them to get this type of workload taken care of? That's a great metric for a study if no one knows you're going to be studying it. But the big thing for it to be good for a study is the researcher cannot affect the results. You're going to have in any social science, the researcher is going to affect the results somehow. If you're not having a direct test, you can do it at least once when people aren't looking, where you can get the stats and, oh, they didn't have a chance to fudge anything. Here we go. We got some idea of how well things are doing. But the problem is when Congress starts issuing metrics. We want to see this specific result. People can get those results, especially the fewer of them there are. In this case, you want those 1-800 number times down. Frank Bisignano is going to get it for you. It's not hard. It's very easy to do, especially if you're not going to follow the law, which you're not following. They're just reassigning people to go focus on that one task and letting all these other important tasks not get done. And it causes problems down the line, not just because that one task isn't getting done, but increases the overall workload, as we discussed earlier. You focus on specific metrics like that, the researcher is driving the results. When Congress is setting that and they're saying, we're going to judge you based on this, they're driving those results. That means that orders come down. We need to get this. What are you going to do to get this? It goes down and down until you get people saying, deny this claim. We need to get these times done. We're going to disadvantage this claimant. That doesn't matter. They're not looking at whether we disadvantage this claimant or not, whether we made more work for ourselves than the claimant. We're going to look at, this is what Congress is looking at. We need to get this done, even though we don't have the staff to do it. The system conforms to meet the goals and non-goals are ignored. It is inefficient and does not serve the public at all. Absolutely inefficient to create more work and create where people have to keep calling in because the stuff behind the scenes, the non stuff that people aren't looking at right now, that doesn't get done. And so because that doesn't get done, people rely upon that. You have more calls come in. But this is part of that business administration instead of public administration mentality. Though granted, having a minor in public administration, public administration, that field is pretty goddamn business oriented as it is. But they're not as bad as the business administration people. That's more of a reflection of our own society in how messed up they are. Also extremely boring. I wish I never picked it as a minor, but I'm kind of stuck with it at this point. I took my 3 classes. I just need to read the books to do the little written essay thing at the end that I don't know what they're going to ask about, but it's going to be from those books. It is not efficient. It's simulating efficiency. That's an important point to keep in mind. It's making it look like it's efficient when it's not, when it's wildly inefficient. And the solution, as we can see from the results, how did you get those wait times on the 1-800 number down? You threw workers at it. Well, you don't want to take them from other places where they're needed. You need more workers at Social Security. You need more workers at the VA. Well, VA, I don't want to speak about them specifically because I know that they've had money thrown at them, everything they wanted for a long time. That may not be their particular issue. I'll let somebody who knows more about the VA handle that. But when you look at the IRS, you want to get things done. You need more people working for the IRS. They seem to know that for ICE. They gave them, what is it, 20 times the budget, I think I read, um, for for what they're doing because they know you put more people on it, you can get a lot more done. And so instead of worrying about giving you your money, this government right now is worried about genocide. Let's get these people who we don't like. And it's not just immigrants, because mind you, you have a lot of people who are just brown and they just assume they're immigrants until they can prove they're citizens. And I'm sure if you look hard enough, you're going to find a couple cases where citizens were deported before they could prove they were citizens. But that's where the focus is. They know you throw the money at it, you can get it done. That's how you get it done. They need to do that for things like Social Security. We were already doing more work than ever before with fewer people than we had in 50 years. Um, so much more work that we had to do. You need more people, and it takes time to train these people too. When they're trying to get rid of all the probationary workers, no, they already have some training. Those are not people you want to get rid of, and they're probationary because they were just hired or just promoted, not because they did something wrong. That's something to keep in mind. Luckily, we didn't lose anyone from our office. One of those SRs they reassigned, we thought was going to be served probationary, but they were technically past the probationary period. So my office at least was good there. But the solution is getting those people, and it takes months of training to get them where they're comfortable enough to do the job with somebody who's more knowledgeable sitting next to them. That's their mentor. They're going to be asking questions left and right, even after months of training. Because what we do is pretty much unlike anything you're going to learn in any school. It's very specialized to the program, and it takes a long time to learn this wide variety of things you have to do. Because we're not doing one thing, we're doing multiple things throughout the day. When I'm doing my job, I'll often have 10, 12 programs open at once because there's multiple things I have to do as they come up. Um, you're not so specialized in things you're only doing one thing. And so it takes a few years of actually doing the job before you're proficient and you become a journeyman. I think the standard is 3 years. You're expected to be proficient at that point. That's a long time to turn. That's most of a bachelor's degree in learning how to do the job 40 hours a week. Um, you need more people and you need to be training them now, especially because so many people with the most experience are leaving. You all this institutional knowledge already left with a bunch of people and more is going to be leaving. Like I said, all across the area, all across the country, there are a bunch of people who are even SRs who know a whole lot about specific workloads, because they've been assigned that workload. It may not be as complicated as something else, but someone like me, you go throw me on that workload, I don't know what I'm doing yet because I haven't had to deal with that. Um, you're losing that institutional knowledge when they go quit, when they go retire early, when they find another job. Um, you're looking at having a serious problem where you're just going to have Social Security not work right for a few years until they can completely train people from scratch. And you're not going to be able to change anything in the interim while they're learning that job if it comes down to that. Now, the lessons for public administration in this: with contractors, you get what you pay for, minus the overhead profit. If you, and the government has a huge issue where the contractor they go with is whoever's going to do it for the cheapest. Ah, damn it. But, for example, why did Comerica get Direct Express? I don't have knowledge of every bid, but they were more or less the cheapest. They were saying we could do it for only this much. Oh, great, that saves the taxpayer money. No, it doesn't. It probably cost a lot when we were calling in, trying to help people and we're sitting on wait for 3 hours at a time. And you would get somebody would be in that office every day making those calls. So you're looking at $120 a day in my office alone, going out the window for a period during COVID because it took them that long um, to get anything done. Um, they don't they don't do as well good of a service when they don't have the people when they're not because they're still going to try to maintain that same overhead profit. That's what they're extracting from it. Well, you'll give me this, I'll take my profit, and this is why I have to spend on running the service. You don't get good results like that. We try to pretend it is. Oh, what a great deal. This is who's willing to do it the cheapest. They're competing, but they're not competing for who has the best product. They're competing for who's willing to do the cheapest. And with that cheapness comes a lesser product because none of them are taking a lower profit to make it happen. With public servants, you generally get more than you pay for. These are motivated people. They try to help people. Why did I decide to go into public service? Because I was sitting there. I have a political science bachelor's when I started. Just got that. There's not much I could go into with a bachelor's. So it's like I'm going to be doing something more or less in this basic vein, some sort of generic white collar work. I could be going trying to cheat people out of their money, working for the private sector, get paid better, get better benefits, doing that type of thing at the level of work that I do. Or I can do something where I can sleep at night because I'm helping people. I chose the latter. And you have a lot of people. They're in the whatever they're doing because they want even ICE agents. Every one of those ICE agents they're going to hire, I'm pretty sure, no matter how horrible their intentions are, they're really into it. They're going to do a great job at going finding brown people to kick out of the country. They're going to be the most racist and violent Americans that they're going to find that don't have a criminal record, I hope. And they're going to be really gung ho into that job. That's part of public service. When you're doing it, at least when you're starting out, before you get demoralized, you're really going into it. You get more than you pay for with public servants. And trying to drive down costs often leads to less efficiency because of those same dynamics. When you're going trying to cut down costs, so you find the cheapest contractor, you're going to end up getting a lesser service, and it can make it very inefficient in ways that are in um, not expected and often not measured. When people have to call over and over again to Medicare, as we discussed early, to get their issues resolved in the interim, they're calling other places because they were misdirected because they're measuring on this metric. And these people are saying, we'll get you this many calls. We're going to handle it for this low price. How are they getting that? Because they are taking those calls very fast. So they're paying somebody hourly who's getting more calls in because they're not doing them right. That's not going to make better efficiency, but it'll create the illusion that it does. You're able to show a nice statistic that's misleading that says, we handle this many more calls. Yeah, because you've been misdirecting people and they don't end up getting what they need handled, done. But it's all about that presentation. The wool's been over our eyes for decades. And it's really, really going bigger with Social Security right now. It's to a ridiculous extent where they're letting things go in order to get that one metric down that he promised the Senate. And metric based management tends to improve image, not service. That is what I would like for you to remember. And thank you once again to the Social Security Administration, who's probably watching, somebody high up in Baltimore. No, these are not your views. These are the opposite of your views. These are my views as somebody who actually knows how how public service is supposed to be handled, how the Social Security Administration is supposed to function. Not your views. So don't worry. Don't ask me to show you where these were your views because they're not your views. And of course, I am doing this. This is a form of whistleblowing. The appropriate people to know about all this are the American people because they have to make an educated decision when they're moving forward, and they need to look at who is supporting this sort of thing and who isn't. In across both parties, independents, I don't think anyone at the national level is in a third party right now. But whatever their political affiliation is, they need to be able to look at it and say, who is supporting this and who isn't. They need to be raising the issue now because probably a lot of those Congress people don't have any idea what's actually going on there. They don't know about this wool being, a lot of them probably have the wool pulled over their eyes. Some of them honestly aren't going to care. Some of them will. And if we get this up, if people start discussing this, if you out there, you share this video, get some traction. I'm sorry that I can be so long winded, but there's an important thing here. Now, those people there, they're going to know, and you're going to be able to tell which ones are serious and which one aren't. Whatever party they are, there's probably people from both parties that are going to fit on both sides of this. Find out who is for actual excellence and who is for just the illusion of it. Who's looking to pull, who's or at least fine with helping pull the wool over your eyes and trick you. And keep in mind these metrics that we're talking about, these celebration, you're going to see that or something very similar to it being touted through the media. And you need to know what the costs are behind the scenes that are causing this. Because I've seen things already not trying to look, just coming across like, oh my God, that's been waiting that long. Oh, we sent this message out asking for help from the payment center and they haven't responded to it in 3-4 months. Manager sending a direct message to management there and they're not getting a response from that manager because that manager is working on something else. And you're going to look at having huge problems down the road if we don't nip this in the bud. This is a public service, and I am a public servant. And so I want to make sure you're aware. So thank you. Look over what I said, look at it critically. Feel free, go stop, pause on those different images of the emails and figure out, am I giving an accurate reflection of those or not? Listen to what I said. It's obviously not what they're trying to say. It's what's in between the lines. It's with the added context. And so, be there. None of this was classified in any way. None of it said do not share, not for the public eyes. So this is all stuff that is able to be shared with you. It doesn't. It wasn't intended to be shared with you, but it can be shared with you. And so I may be seeing another Weingarten meeting after this because they love harassing whistleblowers. But so be it. To public service.